We went on a DC trip and we're gonna tell you all about it.
On Sunday morning at 4 a.m., it was me, Camilla, Will, Lydia, and Zeke.
One of those stops was at the Flight 93 Memorial.
The Flight 93 Memorial is the memorial for the people on 9/11 who stopped the plane from going to DC and hitting the Congress building.
When the plane crashed, they think that it was going to DC to hit either the White House, the Capitol, or the Pentagon. Nobody really knows which one it actually was, though.
At the memorial site, you could see where the plane crashed, and there was a crater, and in that crater was a bunch of wildflowers blooming, and it was very symbolic.
It was pretty common to not have a full plane at that time, and there were only 30-something passengers in the plane that overtook the terrorists. Once we got to DC, we headed to the place where we were staying 5 blocks away from Capitol Hill, called the Friend's Place. He called me up and he was like, "Hey, do you want to play guitar?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I played guitar and helped lead our devotions on the trip. Mike Beasley played his bass, which was louder than my guitar. And
He had an amplifier.
He had an amp. And Marty sang, and then when we had access to a piano, like at Wesley, she played piano. And Will played his cajon.
Sunday night when we arrived, there was a group of us after we had eaten, I think, that we took a walk up. We went and saw the Capitol building in the United Methodist building.
It was very pretty at night, and it was very lit up, and it was gorgeous. And it was very much a bonding moment to get to know everyone.
So Monday morning, we walked past the Capitol building, and we headed to Church and Society.
Amy was the lead teacher at the United Methodist building.
So we learned about the social creed of the United Methodist Church. We learned about our book of resolutions.
Amy had us do this exercise where we had to determine the causes of poverty, and then we said what we are doing to help relieve it, and then we compared the two and found connections between the causes and what we're doing.
When we were making this list of things that we were already doing in our churches and in our lives, most of the things on our list were Band-Aid solutions. They were helping people, but they weren't stopping the root cause. We heard a series of seminars about gun violence and ending gun violence.
Team Enough showed us that the leading cause of death for youth is now gun violence and not vehicles or anything.
And along with that, 1 in 5 Americans say that they've had a family member that's been fatally shot. And in America, you're 2 times more likely to have had a loved one that's experienced gun violence than you are to be left-handed.
The Second Amendment and gun regulations can coexist, and it's about safety and keeping the American people safe and not just trying to take away their guns. On Monday, we had a special visitor come in during lunch, and it was none other than Bishop Trimble. And he went around and talked to a bunch of people, and then he took questions from all of us.
We were on our way to take a group picture, and he asked me if I was still up at the MICA annual conference, and I said, "No, I'm on the stage with emerging leaders now." And he said, "Oh, you're on the stage?" Yep. And then we took a group picture with Bishop Trimble outside of the Church and Society building. Monday night, we went to Wesleyan Theological Seminary. We talked to Grace, who is a current student at Wesley, and she gave us a little tour. And right outside of the chapel was this big mural of John Wesley preaching to people. And there's a bunch of, Methodist historical people like his mama, Susanna Wesley, and his brother, Charles Wesley. He's rolling up some music that he just wrote. And then also his wife. And there's some people that aren't happy that he's preaching. They don't like his methods.
Wait. There's also the guy who brought it to Americas.
Francis Asbury is right there too.
Also, the artist who painted the painting was in the painting because he put himself in it and broke the fourth wall, as well as like 4 other people in the painting.
We had dinner and we started writing up our plan for what we were gonna say to Todd Young's representative the next day. We chose 6 people who were actually going to talk to Gavin LaFoon. And that was Griffin, myself, Camilla, Ariel, Kyle, and then Layla would close us out as our CGO, Chief Gratitude Officer.
Those of us that were going to speak to the next day got up and did a practice run. During said practice run, there were a lot of coordinated obstructions, and one of them being one of the other adults, Pastor Andrew, but he was in the way, let's just say that. So me and Griffin got up, we pulled him away, and somehow he ended up on the ground.
And then our asks. Our ask was to bring Ethan's law to the Senate. This is a law about safe gun storage. It promotes it. Ethan was a 15-year-old kid that was at his friend's house, and his friend was showing him his dad's gun, and the gun went off, and Ethan was killed. So that law has already passed through the House of Representatives, and it needs to pass through the Senate before it can be signed into law. So our ask was that Senator Young would bring it to the Senate so that they can vote on it.
It would drastically reduce the number of accidental gun deaths.
Our second ask was to continue funding for the red flag laws.
They're kind of like if you think someone is in a bad mental state or in a crisis, having a gun would be dangerous to either themselves or others, then it's temporarily taken away and they have to petition the court to get it back.
So there's currently a law in place about red flag laws, but the funding expires in
September 30th, 2026.
So our ask was, will Senator Young continue to fund this law? Tuesday morning we went to Church and Society first thing in the morning, and we dropped off our things there before we headed over to the Capitol building. So we went on a tour of the Capitol. Each state gets 2 statues of historical figures from their state.
One of Texas's is the second smallest statue there.
Sam Houston, and the statue of Ronald Reagan has pieces of the Berlin Wall in the base of it.
In the rotunda upon the dome, there was a picture. There was a picture that's sort of like wrapped around the whole sides, and it was kind of like America's history, and it started all the way back when there was a lot of wars.
The painter who originally started working on the painting died halfway through, and then someone had to finish the painting.
Yeah, there was also a statue of suffragettes and leaders of women's rights. And there's a piece of stone on that reserved for the first woman president. So after our tours, we met with Gavin LaFoon, who is a representative of Todd Young, on the Capitol steps.
So Griffin started out by introducing himself and us, and he told Gavin that we were the Better Way Trip. We were here with the United Methodist Church, and we had come all the way down from Indiana, and we wanted to talk with him about some gun laws.
Mm-hmm.
I was the opening part of the story, and I talked about how a couple of the kids in our group went through lockdown when a young kid brought live ammo to school. And it was a very scary situation for everyone. Everyone had to get their bags searched, and I wanted Mr. LaFoon to imagine himself in those young kids' shoes.
I started off with our first question for Mr. LaFoon, which was, will you bring Ethan's Law to the Senate so that it can be passed? One of you say the response.
Yeah, so what we see a lot of times and really often is that we like to wait for other people to bring it in. It's generally someone on the board or on the committee, and if they bring it in, then we will for sure we'll definitely vote on it. And but we currently don't have any plans to bring in any bills.
Kyle asked a question about the red flag laws, and he said, Mr. LaFoon, we are sick and tired of this. Are you voting on the red flag laws? Are you going to continue funding?
He said he was only going to vote on it if it was actually going to pass.
So after our super productive meeting with that guy,
Productive.
The meeting was super unproductive, by the way.
We met with the Senator Chaplin of the Senate,
Chaplain
Barry Black
Barry Black of the Senate.
and for those of you who don't know, he wrote a book, and Ken is a really big fan of the book, and he got it signed. And I think he's one of Ken's
met
personal
his
heroes.
hero.
He was starstruck the whole time.
Kent, one of our directors, is a chaplain in the Air Force at the 121st out of Fort Wayne.
He did everything twice. He did every homework assignment, every essay twice. And doing everything twice took him from a failing student to being at the top of his class.
And he got not only one doctorate, but 2 doctorates because he does everything twice. And when they were looking to find someone to be the chaplain of the Senate, he was the only one with 2 whole doctorates.
When his mom was pregnant with him, she was baptized.
From the moment he was in the womb.
He knew his whole life that he was going to be a minister, and he used to preach to all his
When he was a wee
siblings.
little kid, he would preach to all of his siblings, and if they didn't listen, then they knew what was coming. We kind of finished the seminars they asked us how it went, and we told them about our meeting with Gavin and Chaplain Black, and then we proceeded from there with doing debriefs. We made a picture of our ideal world, and then spoke about what's changed about it. And then we kind of got in groups and did the same thing, and we made all of our ideals world together.
So the group that me and Zeke were part of, our poster was titled Reimagine.
And the reason it says that is because there was one of the people in our group, for his thing, instead of drawing, he made a parody of Imagine by John Lennon, and he called it Reimagine. And you can also see that there are bees everywhere, because bees are really cool and they help populate the earth with plants and trees. And we can see a really big sun, because the Son of God is very present. And we can see a rainbow because it was a sign of peace all the way back when in Noah's Ark. And then we can see a town hall building or a church, whatever you want to interpret it to be. And there's a bunch of people of all kinds holding hands in the middle with the light shining down on them. And there's a dolphin riding a rocket ship.
I chose a rap called Flippin' Mad. It's like Jesus was flipping tables. Do you want me to perform it?
Yeah.
Gun down with complacency, gun down with indifference, gun down with greed. It's time to stand up. It's time to stand strong. It's time to stand together. Powers and principalities of this age won't change without pressure. Let's pressure the force within, the holy flippin' power, to bring the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. And then we came back to our creative debrief, which was slam poetry. not everyone shared, but a lot of people shared very powerful pieces about gun violence or about the traumas they've faced in life. And I think that surprised a lot of people how how deep and how powerful the a lot of the pieces were.
So in the Twilight Tour or Monuments by Moonlight or the Twilight by Moonlight or the Monuments by Tour, we went around and we saw a bunch of monuments.
We saw the Capitol. We saw we drove to the National Mall. We drove to Arlington National Cemetery.
There's one singular dog on the Korean War Memorial. The Washington Monument is really tall. It was erected over a 240-year period.
The Martin Luther King Jr. Monument is facing the South to make sure the South never goes back to the Jim Crow era and slavery. And he's only 80% carved out because his life was cut short because he was assassinated. Lady Freedom on the top of the Capitol. There's no statue that's taller than her to show that freedom is the most important. She's facing east to welcome people.
One of the other reasons that Lady Freedom is facing east is to symbolize how the sun never sets on freedom.
So on Wednesday morning, we went to Arlington Cemetery, and we hiked up a giant hill through some gravestones to see a changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown.
While we were hiking up the hill at Arlington Cemetery, we saw a couple of graves with United Methodist crosses on them.
After we saw the changing of the guard, we walked over to JFK's grave, and we saw the Eternal Flame. So Marla, our bus driver, dropped us off at the White House, and we got some pictures by the White House.
And then we walked over to the Washington Monument, and Lydia licked it. And then
then Zeke licked it 3 times.
I thought Zeke licked it 4 times, but I know Camilla licked it at least once.
And then we went to the Museum of African American History, and that was really interesting. And it's so packed with information that, I think I could probably go there like 10 times and still not know everything that there is to learn from that museum.
People would sit at the counters of a diner, and they would sit there and wait for service, even if it was a whites only section. And they would sit there and have to peacefully sit there until they were served. And oftentimes they were thrown out of their chairs and beat and bloodied. And part of the training for it was that it was how to protect your head to not have your skull cracked.
One of my favorite things from that museum was a motto of a National Association of African American Museum, and their motto was "Lifting as we climb."
We ate lunch at the African American Museum, and for lunch they had soul food, and it was very, very good. Like, amazing. I would 100% recommend it. I had a sweet potato, some mac and cheese, pulled pork, and cherries.
One of my favorite people that I just learned about on the top floor of the African American History Museum was Althea Gibson. I'm going to read about her. Althea Gibson was the first African American to win a Grand Slam tennis event. She captured the singles crown at the French Championships, now the French Open, in 1957. In total, Gibson won 5 Grand Slam singles tournaments. In 1967, she also became the first African American woman to compete on the Ladies Professional Golf Association Tour. After her playing days ended, Gibson remained a trailblazer. She became the country's first woman state athletic commissioner in 1976. I didn't know anything about her, and she was she she was a really amazing like tennis player, and that's the sport I watch the most and I like the best. So I'm really glad that I saw some exhibits about her, and they had some cool artifacts from when she was playing. Like they had one of her tennis rackets.
Our group went to the Holocaust Museum first. Some of it was about the concentration camps, and they were a lot of times the people that were being sent off didn't actually know where they were going. They were just told they were relocating to another country. And they were packed in
Cattle
train.
cars.
Yeah, they were packed in like train cars that were, I want to say, like 5 by 20. They were very small, and they packed 75 to 100 people in each one. And like looking at it, and you were able to walk through one and seeing it, even like 20 people would have been packed.
One of the things I found about the Holocaust Museum that were, say, interesting was a quote from General Eisenhower. It says, "The things I saw beggar description, the visual evidence and the verbal testimony of starvation, cruelty, and bestiality were overpowering. I made the visit deliberately in order to be in a position to give first-hand evidence of these things, if ever in the future there develops a tendency to charge these allegations merely to propaganda."
A couple days after the trip, I got a text from one of my friends that was on the Better Way trip with us, Chloe F. And she said, literally yesterday, my dad took me to this fishing spot which had a park too, and it wasn't a good spot. So he was trying to see if this guy knew if there was a better spot. And as they were talking, there were a couple gunshots, which weren't too far, but weren't like 10 feet away. And a couple seconds later, there was about 5 in a row. And then 10 seconds later, they kept going. So we ended up leaving. As we left, 2 cops were on their way in, and about 2 miles down the road. There's 2 more cops rushing with sirens, and hopefully no one got hurt. But this just shows that gun violence is real and is a problem.
Gun violence activism is for everybody, not just in big cities where it's a huge problem, because 57% of deaths by gun are suicide. And having like protections like
Like
safety
Ethan's
box.
Law, safe gun storage.
Like having safe gun storage reduces the risk of suicide, and also it's really important because then kids can't get a hold of weapons as easily, and that goes for kids bringing weapons to school and also like just showing weapons to their friends.
There's a lot of ways that you can take action. Church and Society is a United Methodist agency over there on Capitol Hill. And they do a lot of lobbying in Congress that go alongside our Methodist beliefs. There's a long list of topics that they have posted what they believe, what we believe as United Methodists, what our stance is on them. And you can find them at the Church and Society website. If you feel so called to email one of the senators, you can do that through the Church and Society's webpage. They have a way that makes it really easy. Pick the topic, and then you can kind of customize your message further. But it's a really good, easy, fast way to voice your opinion. There's one other thing that I want to say.
Thank you, Marla.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you, Marla.
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 Big bus, short time.
Thank you, the church endowment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, endowment community, who paid for all of us to go. Hearts.
We couldn't do this without viewers like you.
Yeah.
Thank you.